So we're going to call this meeting to order for real at 7:04, and this is our last meeting of 2020. So I don't know. It's been a year, y'all.
It has been a year.
I think we need to formally do roll call because no one's missing. We are present and accounted for. Approval of the November minutes.
I didn't get a chance to read the last one, I'm sorry.
I had nothing.
Move to approve?
Yeah, I second that. Those minutes are approved. Are there any members of the public who wish to be heard? Seeing none, we will move on. And Nicole, thank you for offering to do our icebreaker this month.
Yeah, okay. So, I feel like I have a rambling one. So, we're basically going to answer my icebreaker and then ask a question. But, so I've been doing, with my kids, I've been doing it like the picture book advent calendars. I don't know if it's seen these where it's big out it's not a new, it's a redraft from last year picture book, Christmas one. So my question for you all is, and it's an either or, and all of you really are really creative. But basically, do you have a favorite book, or it could be children's picture books that people have a lot of memories from, like these winter months and holidays? It could be Christmas, Hanukkah, solstice, just beginning of winter, whatever. And or if you're like, I cannot think of a book that reminds me of any of that, do you have like a fun, unique tradition from this time of year that you want to share? But the reason I bring this up is because one of the books that I did purchase, because we did not have 24 picture books, was this book called The Smell of Christmas that I remembered from when I was a kid. It's like a scratch and sniff book.
Oh.
And so like scratch and it's like a little bear and it goes through the smells of Christmas, and it was like a little scratch and sniff, and like I can remember from my childhood the smell of the like orange that they get in their stocking, and the smell of the hot cocoa or whatever. And so like, I was like texting my brother, I was like, look at this, and he was like, oh my god, I remember like peppermint smell and all this stuff. And
That one too.
sorry, you have that one? Is that what you
Had that one too.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's a classic. But
Classic.
the weird thing is though, we bought this one and like I swear 2 of them do not smell. My kids are like, I can smell it, and I'm like, I don't think this smells like anything. But anyway, so it's like a kind of nice nostalgic like to read about it.
Oh, I have a book,
Go ahead.
The Polar Express. And our tradition, my husband and I, and this is just like recently, not when we had young kids or anything, was to watch the movie every Christmas Eve. I don't think we're going to do it again this year, but just really like that book.
The new movie, the like
No,
CGI one?
no.
Is that the only one, or is there?
I don't know if there's another one, but it's the one Tom Hanks.
Yeah,
does most
okay,
of the voices.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love when the waiters are doing the hot chocolate in the train.
We haven't done that one with my kids yet because there's a lot of like doubt about things going on, and I'm like, my kids already asked a lot of questions. Like I really need to add
really
to the you know. So we're gonna wait until they're fully in the doubting phase before we like throw new doubting stories at them.
Well, in our house, we have a little collection of holiday-themed picture books that we acquired over many years. It's a combination of stuff from my childhood that I hunted down, or my mom actually still had, and then new things we picked up along the way. And they go away, they get backed up with all the Christmas decorations, so they don't have access to them. They only come out when we get the tree out and all of that. So my girls are turning 13 and 15 and a half now. So they're kind of beyond the picture book age, but they still get very excited to read them, or they want me to read that to them. I do love that. But the two that are my favorite are Tasha Tudor's A Doll's Christmas. That is an older book from my youth, and Tasha Tudor is like, I'm just kind of obsessed with her. She's a very eccentric and complex character, but that's the way it goes. And then, what was the other one I wanted to mention? Oh, Jan Brett's The Mitten. We read that, and they had, when they were little, they had like mittens that I knit in Christmas colors, like oversized ones with like the little stuffed animals inside, and yeah, it's good memories.
I think it's just
For me, it was the Scratch and Sniff book and Polar Express, but also I loved that the American Girl doll books all had, not all of them, but the ones that were out when I was a kid all had Christmas edition. And those were always favorites for me too.
I don't remember a particular Christmas themed book, although we just would read books all the time. But I remember one of the first books I can remember getting for Christmas was The Speeches and Other Stories. And I loved that book, and I would get it out and make somebody read it to me every Christmas, and after I was old enough to read them, I would read it to them. So I don't know, I just Dr. Seuss mixed up with Santa Claus.
Well, it's not a kid's book, but at least my favorite Christmas story is David Sedaris' The Santa Diaries.
Yes.
And it's way better to hear it, to hear him read it. But it's where he's a Christmas elf in the Macy's in New York. It's chaos and
reminder.
It's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah. And then I don't know. I mean, I get book-wise, that's probably about it. I mean, as a kid growing up in Colorado Springs, as a Jewish kid growing up in Colorado Springs, it wasn't exactly like a Jewish Mecca. But our tradition as a family, my parents would still let us open presents on Christmas because we didn't understand why we were not doing that when all our friends were. But it was pretty quick, and then we would go to a movie. Yeah. And that's where we saw all the other Jews.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is kind of funny. And I still like to go to a movie on that day. And in fact, I still go down the Springs and connect with my parents. We usually go see movies. So. And now everyone does. No one really. I shouldn't say everyone. It's way different now. That's an activity for a lot of people.
Yeah, we were introduced to that tradition by our Jewish friend.
Yeah.
And then now we get Chinese food and go to the movies.
Yes.
Right, Chinese food and movies. Yep.
Hopefully there's a kids movie in the movie theater because that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. I mean, there's usually good stuff around this time of year.
The only one I can see right now is SpongeBob. I'm like, I don't know, I can't do it.
That's a lot of yelling.
Yeah.
I feel like those cartoon characters these days just yell.
Yeah.
But see, this is why my son has to work on Christmas, because he runs a movie theater.
Yeah.
So we never get together. He's in California, so I go out in February.
Oh, there you go. Late Christmas.
Yeah.
I was having trouble deciding on a book because a lot of the books are kind of starting to become new traditions with my daughter. She's just 5 now, so we're still kind of figuring out what her favorites are. But the one that I go back to every year is The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. There's also a film for it, and there's a newer film as well. But it's just a classic story, and I just really like that. And then my other thought was, it's not a book, but the Gremlins movie was always a family tradition.
That is a Christmas
for us to
movie.
watch. So I always kind of have that feeling even if I hear that song that they're playing during one scene, I'm know it's the Gremlins song. So that's definitely something I just think that we watch every year. Yeah.
My personal tradition is Die Hard, of course. That's the best Christmas movie ever. which is debate. It's a big debate whether it's a Christmas movie.
It's one of the Ghostbusters. Christmas. Related. I can't remember. Yeah, I have a vision. Was it
Balloon? Is
Oh, okay.
Is it not a balloon? And they just blew it up. That's all it was,
A
right?
float.
It wasn't actually a float. It was just big.
Yeah.
Never mind.
They probably came out with a float after.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Is that everybody? Yeah. Thank you so much. This time of year is always like, there's a lot of book-related traditions and things that come up with the kids, but also like just us, you know. It's a good time to read if you're taking time off this season. I usually use it to catch up on reading. Well, next on our agenda, and looking back, looking forward, that's because we are saying thank you and farewell for now to Barbara. We kind of went over this, I think, last month, but just very sad and also
prepared a speech this
excited.
time. As you promised.
Well, what I can tell you about is I was in this room from last Wednesday until Friday night because the woman who usually does all the children's books for the Friends Book Sale has been going through some transition. So I've been working to try to keep that going. And then came in on Sunday morning, and Sunday morning we take all the books that we didn't sell, and we just dump them in these dumpsters and we take them off to book rooms. And so it really was the lifespan of a book. I find all these books that I remember sorting and then get them out and people come in. So the good news is that we did, we hit our mark for what we wanted. So I'm not sure what we'll announce it all to you, but we made a nice hug and a good time with that. So I'll always be in this room in spirit with you.
You'll still be in this room, just in a different meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can leave little notes for us. No, it feels right that this is happening now, and while, you know, I wish we had a full board and we could replace that spot right away. The Friends too is moving through a substantial transition, and I think the more support that they can have, especially at the leadership level, to make progress, we just see fruits of it every month.
Yes, and this will bring us all together.
So thank you for being a part of this board.
I've enjoyed every minute of it.
And, you know, you contributed a lot in a very short time, so we're thankful for having you for the time that we did.
Thank you.
And looking forward, one of the things we're looking forward to is having our new city council liaison joining us, which wasn't able to quite happen for this meeting because I think they still need to decide who that's going to be.
That's correct. Yeah, they were going to have board appointments for this meeting, but unfortunately that got pushed forward because their last meeting went a lot longer than expected.
Because of public comment.
So yeah, board appointments are happening. I think either later this month or next month.
So we'll look forward to hearing back. Tracy will let us know when that is imminent, and hopefully we have that person's name and maybe a little bit more information in advance so we can really prepare, I guess, or just welcome them fully and get to know them a little bit. December meeting is also a nice time to just revisit reminders about quorum, our plans to recruit, if there are any agenda requests that you would like to make now for the first couple of months, so at some point we should talk about, now would be a good time. Quorum is just, with the one vacancy, it's just gonna be extra important that we know who to expect at each meeting, so that we know whether our time is being used wisely.
So is quorum 3?
It's still 3.
It's still 3,
Yeah.
so there's 4 of us, so.
But before, we could have up to 2 people
Yeah.
absent from
And
the
now we can
meeting, and now we can only have 1.
Yeah.
So that's that. Recruiting, as we mentioned last month, is really gonna gear up in the spring. So we'll be looking to onboard, hopefully, that new board member in like June or July is the first meeting. I don't remember. It's
After recruitment, it'll be July.
July,
Yeah.
okay. And the other thing, agenda requests, if there are any. And you can bring them up.
I mean,
later.
a suggestion as the liaison to the board, but with recruitment coming up,
Mhm.
and there's been conversations before about ideas about efforts that this board could do to encourage applicants. That might be an agenda topic
Mhm.
to do, and come up with some ideas and even a plan if people want to do some footwork. I know that's a lot, and there's no requirement obviously, but since I've heard it talked about before,
Mhm. It could be
and
a
there's
simple.
ways the library can help with social media,
Mhm.
our website, whatever. But if there's things the board wants to talk about as a topic, and then if the library can support it, we will.
I was thinking just as simple as showing up as a board member to one of these engagement opportunities, library event, friends
Yeah.
event, and introducing yourself, whether you're behind a table or not, to the public, and maybe mentioning like, hey, I'm with the Library Advisory Board, we're looking for members, would you consider putting in an application or checking out our website? But yeah, we've talked about that in the past. I like that idea of having somewhat of a campaign.
I have a hard time describing what we do
Mhm.
in terms of like what, I don't know, impact we have and
Mhm.
things like that. Like what, I don't know, I mean, I think I've been on the board for a year and a half or so, and I think the major things that we've done is like updated our like bylaw type of things, and then the interview guide and things like that, but I don't know what else to say that we've done.
Mhm.
I think from my perspective, I mean, the broad thing about it to me is advocacy. And I think what comes with that is, as a board member, is understanding what the mission, what our values are as a library, and sharing that. I mean, it's not necessarily like, and maybe that's not what you're looking for to hear, but to me that's a component. So because you're representing like Longmont, right? Everyone here is on the board to kind of represent. So I figure like, what might a board member's elevator speech be to a community member if you're somewhere? And I think it would be like what the library does, what the library needs, things we talk about. So I talk a lot about budget and where we're behind as a library, all those things. I think it helps to have board members that hear that and then can share it out whenever and wherever that's relevant. Is one thing.
So
That's why I'm
in that
couching
way,
it.
our impact is if we've mentioned that kind of stuff in public, if we've done that, if as members of the board, we've talked about the library budget to other people in Longmont.
I do all
Are
the
you?
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, but I'm just saying, is that what you would say that our impact has been? Is that what you would say the impact of our board has been?
One of them, I think.
I think it's one of the impacts, like, so for me, the understanding, not like every detail maybe of a budget, but it's just more like where we're underfunded, what that means for the community. Things I try to talk about, or we do as a group. Are those going to come up all the time? No, but maybe when you're at events, or it could be random conversation, it could be going to council in public comment and being that voice, because you're here and we're talking all things about this library.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be broad or kind of general.
And it ebbs and flows, right? Because
Yeah.
we've had what I would refer to as a relatively peaceful little stretch of time with this configuration. And I remember when I first came into the board, there was a lot more going on. There was a lot of conversation happening about a feasibility study that had been done, and whether or not to, what to do with the results of that study, and what to advocate for or recommend to council. So there's a lot of work around putting together a formal recommendation from the board that was like more than giving comment during that portion. It was like time on the agenda to get up and like read from a prepared statement. And so one of my first experiences was going to a council meeting and listening to members of the board at that time read those statements in support of that feasibility study. Same for when there's something on a ballot, when we're coming up to an election. There was so much that was happening around that in conjunction with the Friends as well, who the Friends is a 501c3. They have a little bit more flexibility in some ways, what they can do around an election, whereas our role is pretty narrowly defined. But again, it is that advocacy and that awareness in the community about the importance of the library and what it offers and why it needs more funding and so on. So I remember there was a time where we were editing more statements and then attending more council meetings, and then when that ballot measure was happening, we were trying to get the word out and
On some
share as
level,
much
campaign when
information.
you weren't allowed to campaign, which didn't make any sense.
Inform
Yeah.
and educate. And that's when it was nice to be able to partner with the Friends, because they could do more of that. But they're limited as well.
I also think, in some ways, and because I was talking to somebody about this too, about kind of an unsung advantage of having the board and the Friends. If, this year, our community's been very supportive of the library, but there's so much going on that if and when there's a campaign to talk about banning a book, or libraries being troublemakers or whatever, you have a built-in group of people who are available to speak to the issue when they come up.
Mhm.
So, and it's not the staff talking, it's not city council talking, and so I think that it's almost, I think we're in reserve to
Mhm.
speak to these issues when they do come up. And part of that is familiarizing ourselves with how the library works, so that when issues come up, we can understand how these issues are going to impact the library.
But I share your frustrations, to be honest.
I wouldn't call it frustration. I just was confused about, or not confused, but curious if there is more. You're talking about asking about more agenda items. Is there more that? And
Is
if it's
there
just
more
that
we could
right
be
now,
doing?
if it's just that right now, it's a peaceful time. There's no ballot measures. There's no whatever. We don't need to go to city council because nothing's
Yeah.
dramatic right now. Then we are in reserve. That's great. It's hard to when people are like, what do you do on the advisory board? I'm like, I learned a lot about the library.
Yeah.
I say, I
Yeah.
would say, I know a lot about a lot of the issues, and so
Yeah.
I'm always happy to talk to people about it, but when people are like, what do you do?
What do you
Like,
do?
I listen.
Well,
What we do and what our impact is are two different questions,
Right.
really. But I feel like I've been bringing that energy for like years. Like, is there something more we could be doing? Could we be more helpful? Can we? And it's a delicate balance because we're all volunteers and we all have busy lives. And so I learned the hard way that asking volunteers to put in more time than a monthly meeting is going to have mixed results. Some people are going to be like, yeah, give me something to do, or I want to feel more useful. And then you have folks who are like, I'm here every month for 2 hours and I've got to get someone to watch my kids, and this is my contribution, my time and my experience and knowledge to be drawn upon, because that's the other thing when we ask applicants, when we're trying to find out the fit with the board. We're also looking for those areas of expertise that may be useful to the library at some point. But yeah, there's that reserve feeling a lot. And this is the first advisory board I've ever been on, so other types of boards have more work to do in between the meetings. And so it's like, yeah, I'm used to that, and I kind of still want some of that, but then also that's not what everybody's looking for when they apply to something like this. I personally think that what's in the municipal code is pretty solid. Like, you can put your own flavor, use your own language, but that's a pretty concise description of what we're here to do.
That's kind of what I was thinking when I came on. I mean, the reason I applied for the board is I've never been on an advisory board, and I was kind of thinking, well, I have this professional background in libraries, but not in public libraries, and I have found it really helpful hearing what John has to say about what's going on in this library, and also Susie about the council. Because I've never been to a council meeting. So, but how does that affect? And that we're supposed to be the liaison. So I'm besides being a professional librarian, I'm also a resident of Longmont who uses the library. And so, but I've kind of said, well, is there more I should be doing, or, but I don't want to just make work or anything, but.
I also think we'd be having a different conversation if we didn't have John as the director. And so, part of what we're doing is going back and forth, sort of being a conduit, because the council has oversight over the library, and they can't be the eyes and ears. And I think that John and his staff do a really wonderful job. But there could be, there are times when the staff of a particular office isn't, or is making questionable decisions, and maybe there needs to be more input. But I think with John, it's what he's done is given us a very good understanding of what's going on, and I feel like there's a lot of transparency. And I think that is important if anybody had questions what's going on in the library, or also if the library's policies were, didn't seem to be in alignment with what's in the best interest of the community.
Right. I remember a minute when I first started approaching this board. This was before John started. There was a different director who had a very different style. There was a different advisory board with a different chair who had a very different outlook on what the board needed to be doing, and the Friends had very different leadership, and there was a lot of tension among the three entities. And so listening to you talk makes me aware of how different it is now, just a few years later, like maybe 4 or 5 years later. Right, you've been here 4 years? 3 years? So it's probably about 4 years ago, just who was in the room. The connections were very different, and this feels so much more harmonious, and that the communication is better, and that we are all able to share across, like with John or with Friends Board, like either when we see something that doesn't seem right, or we have a concern, or opportunities to collaborate and kind of unite around a common purpose. We did with the gaming tournament. The gaming tournament, like, I think we forget how, it's very easy to forget how that wouldn't have happened 4 years ago. You wouldn't have had board members from, Tracy's nodding, from the Friends, from the advisory board, in conjunction and in coordination with the director, like planning for a well-attended and well-supported event. So I mention that so that I don't take that for granted, that I can reach out to any of
And then
us.
you as board chair, you participated in the strategic initiatives.
The strategic planning
Oh,
you did.
yeah. Right, and so, and so that's been done, so it's not like we're sitting down right now to work out a new strategic initiative.
Right.
But I do think if John got hit by a bus.
Or
you
won the
know,
lottery.
Or won the lottery.
Let's go with that one.
Yeah, let's go with it.
Yeah, that.
Selfishly.
That there was somebody, who came in, our role might be totally different.
And we might actually have to pass on some stuff.
We might be
Back to
renting the
that
library
person.
out to the city council, But I think that right now what we're trying to do, although we haven't done it that much, is really try to sing the praises of the library to the city council, because right now it just seems to be all about money. Not just the library, but that's where we're at right now.
And elevating the voices of the constituents that we all speak to, and I don't mean like knocking on doors, but just people that you know.
Because I do mention to everybody that when I talk about the library, about the fact that we were really kind of in competition with recreation and the museum, and that, that we shouldn't be all having to split up the pie. So, and so that is a way, something we can say.
And that kind of stuff, like, most people don't even know.
No, they don't. And but it makes them think about, that they can think about it and think, oh, that's right. They had all three of those initiatives at the same time on a ballot not that long ago, and they all canceled each other out, because we couldn't do them all. So I do think our role is different at different times depending on who's at the city council and who's at the helm of the library.
And what's going on in the community.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes in city council, and that could change as they get going. They could come up with new priorities that could affect this library, so then what are you doing? It's like becoming more educated, right? And as me as well, but that's what I try to do here. And I will say too, I appreciate the comments. I try to share what I think is relevant, but I'm always happy to entertain questions, or if people think like, what's missing, what do I don't know?
Give us a
Sometimes that's hard if you don't know what you don't know, right? But I think, someone brought up the strategic plan. I was thinking, even with that, at the time it was completed, or even during it, I was sharing it with this board along the way. But it's like, okay, well now what? Like, even now I'm thinking that could be a piece of an agenda or a report every month to kind of show things that we are doing that match that. And I think having that plan helps, because then there's like concrete things that we're giving ourselves the direction, that it's a little easier to have something to point to specifically, maybe. I'm just thinking of other things that help those conversations.
Do you remember that year where every month or almost every month there was a different staff member, or
Yes.
sometimes it was you, but there would be like a pretty short
little presentation from some of my
or
leadership.
overview
Uh-huh.
about different departments
Yeah.
or different areas within the library, different
Yeah.
roles. And I thought that was great to
Yeah.
really feel like I knew how this library.
Yeah, I think that
operated.
was good, and I think we kind of cycled through the main areas, but that it shouldn't really be a one and done, right? Because first of all, we have new members. I think
Yeah.
you're the only one that ever experienced that.
Yeah, it was hard.
Well, so like if I were gonna be coming up with what I'd like to hear about next year,
Mhm.
and I would still like to hear about, is one is, because you just got it off the ground, because you're talking about expanding adult literacy programs.
Mhm.
And I think that would be something I'd love to hear more about.
Yeah.
And then I'm constantly wondering too about, you know, how are things going with the unhoused? You know, how's that going? Are we having conflicts? Are we having compassion? Are people feeling welcome? And, you know, when I come and I feel like everybody seems to be harmonious, and I don't hear about any events, but those are two things that I think we could do more of a deep dive into. And I do think, you know, my one time when I went and did talk to the city council, I mentioned both of those things, and I do think if we looked into some of them and then had some compelling, interesting results over time, then we could go back to the city council and say, hey, we just want to tell you about this thing that's going on.
And remember, like Susie was with us with this board for a long time and has been a champion of the library for a long time. And so depending on who our new liaison is, we may need to catch them up on some stuff, educate them more about current issues, like beyond, because I know they hear about the need for funding and they hear about different things, but we have an opportunity to maybe dig into a more granular level or more representative of what Longmont residents are or not experiencing.
Yeah, and I think, you know, to that point, you know, it can kind of become you know, it's hearing the same thing, right? If you're just like, yeah, the library needs more funding, right? But I think, and what we're trying to do internally, and this is another thing I'm thinking about too, is how do we actually share stories that capture that?
Mm-hmm.
And those are things either through staff coming here or myself or whatever, is kind of sharing those stories or day-to-day things that happen here that are meaningful, that this board hears, and those are stories that can be shared. So when people ask about the library, you know, that can be shared, and it's not always coming from the director or staff. That's, I think, for me, what it would be huge.
That could be the first time we have the new liaison, maybe not the first meeting, but the second meeting, something like that. Like actually doing like because I think we've all probably heard statistics or something from your presentations that stood out to us, like, and it might be nice to kind of pull together some kind of presentation, maybe like you lead something and we can chime in or something like that, just to like catch them up on like,
Like a little
here's why
onboarding
we,
session.
like here's why this is important, and I mean obviously it's going to be mostly about budget, but I think like kind of pulling some of the like interesting stats that you had in terms of how long the Libby hold times are, or like, or the fact that the Friends pay for 100% of the programming, or things like that, where it's like,
Exactly.
those things are always the things that people I think are so surprised to hear, and like it's very possible someone on city council, especially if they're new, won't know about. So I think having maybe even like a short slide deck or something, or just something that, so that we can just catch up the first.
What do we want them to know?
Yeah.
Right? Statistics, impact, needs, something surprising that they might not even realize.
Or just, I mean, the fact of all of the different federal things going on, that libraries are basically under attack. You know, and that some of the agencies that support it are under attack, you know, and I think that'd be good for them to know, so they could also understand, you know, and I think you should mention you had to have an ICE policy, you know, that we are the front. I mean, maybe it's somebody who really understands the library, but maybe it's not somebody that understands we're the front door of the city, you know, and so all those things
Yeah,
happen.
because anybody could just walk in.
Right, happened to us, so.
Yeah.
So I've learned a hell of a lot.
Well, and I do like the idea, like you brought up, like adult literacy and but that and I'm thinking like, you know, that's great. Like I love hearing that because I'm thinking like I could bring someone in and totally deep dive into that and what our plans are,
Right.
and then that ties back to our strategic plan anyway. So you kind of get both. You know, so it's like kind of a little more detailed. So I do feel, as much as I try to share it, very high level, I would say for the most part, right? I mean, but it doesn't always have to be. It's like we could really go into something a little more in depth and really get into that, or we could take on either something that becomes a library issue, not necessarily here, but like a library issue, and what that might mean here. Like we did a little bit when the federal stuff was going on with IMLS and the state, our own state.
Legislature.
Thank you. That's the word. You know, came up with 2 new laws that directly affected, you know. So I think that's important, and to kind of get into that and fully understand what that means and what I think it means, you know. And get questions from people that maybe, you know, like the public. You're
You
the
know,
public.
and maybe that's the part we haven't hit on, is we haven't gone back to the city council too much and made them aware that there's more going on than, oh, there's enough books, oh, there's enough computers for, it has people to sit on, and remind them, you know, that there are all these other programs that do need funding, you know, one of them being, you know, adult literacy, and all these other things that could be done, if, you know, that you're trying to do on your shoestring budget. But I do think that people just think libraries, books.
Yeah.
You know, and so maybe that's part of our role too, is to remind the city council and the public, you know, it's not just books, it's services. And you know, the Friends do it in a really good way, but they're more focusing on, here's the services that we bring you.
Right.
And maybe ours is more like, here's what we do for the community. And maybe that's
That essential services button that we have to keep hitting on.
right.
Yeah.
Because they have all these little cool posters. It's like, well, you can check out a book group thing, and you can, you know, get a ticket to the Butterfly Pavilion, and it's like, well, you know.
I'm spoiling a
Yeah.
later agenda
Yeah.
item, but this film screening, I think, is going to help with that.
I'm glad you brought this up, because I think this is really, it's been a great,
It's good to articulate it.
yeah, and it's been a great
If it has
discussion.
been, I mean, I hope it's helpful. Like, it's helping me.
Well,
anyways.
generating maybe some future agenda items, which
Yeah.
is what our poor leader was trying to get.
What else can we talk
I do
about?
have one more agenda item that I would love to see, not monthly, but like maybe quarterly,
Oh, yeah.
is I feel like, you know, once a year for a few months, we hear about the budget for a few months. I'd love to kind of hear that quarterly. Kind of like, what are you doing this quarter that you're looking ahead next year? Because I feel like all of a sudden, you come and you're like, I've prepared a budget, and I'm like hearing about the, you know, the speakers not working for the first time. And I would love to kind of hear throughout the year, what are the things that you're looking at and planning on putting on the budget, and how, in terms of what funding you got from the previous year, how many like more books did you acquire, and what is that like tracking over the years and things like that. There's just like kind of some like tracking I'd like to see throughout the year rather than for a few months, because it might help us also to be able to provide some of that like advice or something like that of like, and more likely we'll just be like, yeah, that sounds good, but then we can also talk to other people about like, oh, here's some of the things, you know, more than just once a year.
Yeah.
So if that's good, I think we've got
Excellent
our
idea.
like
Yeah.
monthly seems probably too often. But
Well,
unless you have something every month.
I would
then-
say generally your thought on quarterly makes sense unless there's something specific that
Right.
is worth addressing, and I try to keep an eye on that stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, my mind is definitely, I'm more engrossed in it like
Mhm.
May through September.
Sure,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Because that's like the real planning and stuff like that. But it's the rest of the year, it doesn't mean we're not, or thinking about, okay, I mean, we've already been talking about just now with some staff, because as we get to our last few weeks here, and I really start monitoring spending, and we have, if you go look at I'm kind of digressing here, but if you go into the city, like the financial people in the city, it's bottom line is all they look at, right? For me, I have all these individual, like, what are we spending on adult books? And then that's broken down. And what are we spending on e-content and supplies? All these things. And every year what happens is we have some of those individual lines that go way overspent.
Mhm.
And
That would
so,
be useful to
and we
know,
have things
yeah.
that are underspent.
Yeah.
So operationally as a staff, I've already been talking to my leadership, like, we need to figure this out
Mhm.
because what I don't want to do every year at the end of the year is like, we got to stop spending, like, don't buy any more books.
Mhm.
Because, but what's going to happen is at the end of this year, if you look at what we spent on like print collections, it's going to look in some areas slightly underspent. And I absolutely don't want that, because when I go into budget season and I'm asking for more, they're going to you underspend. I'm like, well, that's because I needed to balance my budget and we overspent here. And well, why did we overspend here? Well, in some cases, we put in the code that we shouldn't have put in because someone charged something to like dues and subscriptions instead of software. It's just like, but it makes that happen because the collection people, they get their budget and they like calculate that out for 12 months. So there's no reason why we shouldn't get it very close to zero.
Mhm.
That being said, we had major vendor problems this year,
Well,
which I brought up with them basically going out of business the last second, and we had thousands and thousands of dollars of orders canceled. So it's like a little bit out of our control in that case. Like I said, I'm going into the weeds here, but I just think to your point, I mean, and it's also transparency. Like, I don't need to just talk about it once a year. Like, even if it's just like, what's the pulse on the budget right now?
Yeah. I love to hear more about like in terms of the budget that you got for acquisitions and things like that, and like all the other like line items that you did get budget for. Did you spend it all? Like,
Right.
was it all useful? Like, where did you have to? Was something else kind of more essential than you had said on the budget, so you had to move money around or something like that? I'm just curious, like how that works.
And, yeah,
if that's
and
a
it does
thing.
happen.
And, yeah, exactly.
Or there's like for this year, the biggest thing that happened is our contract with Marmot, right? Our membership that we're in that gives us our library system, and that's our most expensive contract we have. And I had the problem I have, and I think now this coming year will be a lot better, but their budget season's different in Marmot land. They're on a June, July, and I was estimating what a cost increase might be, and I learned way too late that they're having major financial problems. But we effectively, and so our contract, instead, I budgeted for like 6 or 7% increases. I thought it's never gone up, and they were saying like, we're going to have to increase a little bit. So I'm like, okay, well, a little bit's 3 or 4. I said, well, I'm going to do 6. It went up 10%,
Wow.
and we're talking about $150,000 contract. So that's a
Wow.
big chunk of money that caused that right away. It was overspent. Right? So anyway,
I think that's
so we
something-
should talk more about this.
Well, I do
Yeah.
think, I was just thinking about, just even a report sometime about what all your major contracts are, so we can understand, like, about the
Yeah.
fact that you have a major contract that helps you import and label and get books on the shelf, that you have a major contract
Yeah.
that supports your online system, whatever. But I think it would be helpful for us to know that too, because those are kind of your unavoidable costs that they've got to fund, and it'd be helpful if we understood that.
You know, all of this is city spending and there's a finance, so like they should be able to get reports to us pretty easily, right? It's not,
Oh yeah. It's I get them.
Yeah. Okay,
You know,
so
and then there's some I run.
maybe there's just something that we could just have a printout once a month of something that came
Yeah.
through, just so we can look at it. We don't even have to necessarily like dive deep into it, but like that might
No.
be a
It's
nice.
just, it's good to know, because
Yeah.
I think members of the public think that there's a lady who sits at the desk, I'm serious, that sits at a desk, you know, and gets the book comes in and she writes it up and put, you know, and I don't think people have any clue how much automation and how much
Yeah.
technology, and the fact that right now with all the changes going on in business, there's all these businesses that you guys totally depend on, and all the libraries depend on, and they're just in distress, and so you're all going to be competing to find a new thing. And I think people just need to know that you're not just sitting at your desk doing this, that there's these big.
I can guarantee you that would be a disaster.
No, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, the 21st century library is just, it's not what people think it is. And I think that helps people understand who just think libraries are just buying books.
Yeah.
You're not.
And that librarians just sit at the desk and read books.
Yeah.
Oh, that's our favorite thing to hear.
I know, yeah.
I did see a librarian reading a book today and I was like, that looks amazing.
Usually it's at a time.
I know, I've never seen it before. That's why I was like, it was very quiet this morning. But I was
Like in children's? Or were you upstairs?
I tagged on something.
Don't worry about it. I just want names. No,
I've forgotten. I don't know where I was.
No, I mean,
It was great. It
But
was great.
it's.
They might have been
okay.
looking through a book that had been returned, okay?
It
Like,
could
I don't
be.
know. I wasn't like
Yeah.
creeping on them. But I was
No,
like,
but
that looks
there's-
so peaceful and cozy right now.
Well, and there's a certain amount of reading that, whether it's a book or not, but certainly our selectors are reading through book reviews. And a lot of that's done off desk, because that's hard to focus when you're getting, you know, help from the public, which is their priority.
I just picked up a staff pick on my way in. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope this is a quick follow-up question, but
There are none.
So what you were describing about contracts being canceled close to the end of the year, do you have the ability to ask to have funds rolled over to the next
Yes.
fiscal year when something like this happens? when you
I
have
do.
to spend down?
I do. And if all of our other lines, like if we didn't have overspend happen for whatever reason, like over here,
Mhm.
then I would absolutely make a request to appropriate collection dollars to the next year. I can't do it now because I really don't have the money. It looks like I do.
Right.
But you can request that, and it's a city manager final decision of
Yeah.
whether, and I think if you get in the habit of requesting, we call it an appropriation, but it's a rollover.
Mhm.
If you're doing that all the time, then they're going to start questioning you, like,
You're not-
what's the deal?
Yeah, you don't need this money.
We don't need to allocate that money.
Yeah.
Maybe we give you less next time.
And there's other, things you can do too. This wasn't so much about collections, but, or maybe it was 1 year, I don't know, but we did have a short spending for some reason, and I basically did a method of doing that, which was to create a purchase order for something. Purchase orders automatically get rolled over without going through the city manager. So, but
That's
again,
cool.
if you make a habit of that,
Right.
so you have to, there are tools to help when you run into issues, basically. So there are ways to make sure that, and I would argue that that's good governance, where we have, the library is 100% reliant on general fund dollars for those things, collections, and we need to spend it because the taxpayers are paying for that.
What happens with situations like with Marmot and you spend an extra, whatever it was, $8,000 or
Well,
something?
we try to underspend other places.
Is that what you have to do? Yeah, okay, so.
I mean, maybe I could come back and request. It's very hard after the fact
Yeah.
to say, hey, this came up. and to see if there's dollars to help support that. But for this budget year, I just decided, because we have had some other years where we were underspent, and I don't really know why in some areas, not collections, but like other areas, maybe with supplies, things that are a little more, like maybe we didn't need as much spending in supplies one year as we did in another. And then sometimes there's salary savings because of attrition. So people leave and we don't get filled for a while.
Right.
And I can actually move that within a budget year if I'm short. And this happened last year. Our budget was going to go over. I had salary savings, so the finance was able to appropriate that back into our operating budget, so I didn't go over.
Okay.
So
Oh,
there are ways.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, we weren't allowed.
No. Public health.
The salary was completely separate from all of this.
Well, and it also is in a way, right? Because the opposite of that is if for some reason salary went over, it's not like, I mean, I'll have people coming after me like, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
But staff will always get paid,
Yeah.
right? It's not going to be like, sorry, your director
Yeah.
budgeted poorly, so
Yeah,
good
yeah,
luck.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Sorry about that, mortgage.
So, whoops, yeah.
Here's a pizza.
So that's a
Thank
nice,
you.
easy question, Nicole.
Yeah.
I'm
Which
teasing.
one?
Well,
The original
What
one.
do we usually do?
Yeah, okay, fair.
no, it's good. I love it.
It's helpful to know that we're all on the same page, because that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that was basically, I
Yeah.
didn't want to be able to have an answer.
Yeah.
I think between Tracy's minutes and the notes that I took, we have like a nice list to work with starting in January. If we're done with this topic, we can move on to doing something like finalizing our interview documents, which we hope that this is pretty much it. So this is mostly a formality unless there are comments or concerns that were not raised in last month's meeting.
I just have a nit.
Yeah,
The
nitpick.
two first recommended questions where it says describe your
Mhm.
involvement and then answer
Oh.
the question mark. For
Period.
Both of them should be a period.
That,
Just a
yes.
nit, it makes me want to cry, so that's all.
No, this is why I want you on this board. Because that's exactly the thing that matters to me, is punctuation.
I'm sure you just changed them from a question to something.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I have a question, because there is a question that says, what in the library's mission statement most resonates with you and why? Is the mission statement, is it that second sentence under the purpose of the board?
Yep.
Then it should say mission statement, because I wouldn't know
Mm.
that. It looks like a mission statement,
Okay.
so, you know.
So
in
label
bold.
it.
Label it, yeah, in bold, like purpose of board is one, and then next is mission statement, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So far, 2 simple edits.
Yeah, just like this.
And they're not really changing anything. They're
No, it's clarifying.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Clarifying, yeah.
The last thing, or not the last thing maybe, but another thing. I just maybe am confused about what's going on. Well, how are you supposed to fill this out? Because I assume that's what this is, to come some kind of rubric. Because it has like, at the very last line, it has like summary / notes, and then first choice, second choice, alternates. I think that's like the people's names that you're putting in there. But then like on that first line under recommended questions, it's like name, and then there's like strong, neutral, weak. I'm just super curious what I'm supposed to be doing with this rubric.
My feeling was that this last part should just be summary and notes, and then somewhere else you can put using this to get your first choice, second choice, and all.
Yeah, because
Is it
this
going to
is,
be one per person?
that's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was-
One
Yeah,
per
when I was
person.
in interviews in the past, I printed out one of these per candidate.
Right, so for, you know, by the time, when you're just having the first candidate, you're not gonna know first choice, second choice.
So do you think we can take that whole row out?
Yes, and have that
Yeah.
nice big juicy space for summary /
Summary
notes.
Okay.
about that one person.
Merge those cells, is that what you're
Merge the
suggesting?
rows and the columns.
So it is the idea that the strong, neutral, weak columns, you would be writing your, like, as somebody is describing their involvement with this or other libraries, you would be deciding whether your notes in each thing is, or are you just like doing a check mark? Like, what is the idea?
Whatever
here?
is helpful
Okay.
to you, because these don't get turned in, nobody sees them. So they're for your
Okay.
they're for your reference. And for me, with a big box like that, I could see myself making little notes to myself about why I thought it was strong or why I thought it was weak.
Okay.
Because we're all going to come back together and discuss and make recommendations. And someone might challenge me, like, well, I thought they gave a really strong answer. Why do you think it's weak? And then I can,
Maybe their involvement's strong in some areas and weak in that they've never had a library club.
Mhm.
As long as someone is formulating why they are using those columns the way they are laid out, I'm on board. I personally didn't understand
Okay.
how I would use the columns. I just wanted to, like, if everyone was like, I wouldn't use those columns, then I was like, why do we have them? But if you're like, that makes sense, I would put those notes in there.
One of the rounds we did it was slightly different headings, but I used the boxes the same way. I kind of made a mark, and then after all of the candidates had been interviewed, I counted up the marks because I wanted just to see. It's not that that's exclusively how I was making my recommendation, but I wanted to see how the candidates compared to one another, rankings wise.
Okay.
Yeah, and once you've been through like 2 or 3 people, it's like, well, was it that one that said that or that one, so that you can remind yourself.
Or
You're
two
making-
candidates who are almost equally
Yeah.
strong, but then there was that one question and you just liked the way that
Right.
they responded.
But you're making your notes in the moment
Yeah.
with that one person. Yeah, I like that.
But if you don't want to work that way, like it's not.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm perfect. As long as it's helpful for somebody, then we can keep it.
I just see myself using the whole thing of writing.
That's how I probably would do it. Is I would have this just be an empty
Right.
box
But
without
I-
columns.
But I
like,
appreciate people that.
yeah, we don't need to change it for me. That's for sure. And then I guess the last thing is, why is this name italicized on the right of that
Yeah, is that
box?
where you're supposed to write the person's name?
I'm just curious.
Oh,
Yeah.
I haven't seen that before. Oh, maybe. I don't know. Anyone have a thought?
I guess it's when you see like name and it's in brackets, it's like this is where you would fill in the person's name. But yeah, like I said, I print off one of these per person, so I just write it at the top. But I think it's just a good reminder to make sure that you labeled who this was
Yeah.
somewhere.
Well, would
You
that
know,
be
like,
helpful to
yeah,
have
for
that
next.
just formatted a little differently, to have like candidate 1 or candidate name, and then have like a underscore so that it's more obvious what it's there to do, and
Yeah.
maybe not in that box,
Yeah,
maybe
it seems
at
like
the
it ought
top.
to be up there.
Yeah, I think if everyone's using it where everyone's gonna print off one per, I think just having it at the top, just name, colon,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah.
But it's so much better than it was.
It really is. Any typos, errors, misrepresentations of what you remember being said in a meeting?
There's a missing Oxford comma, but I don't really care about it.
I don't know what the library's style guide dictates.
We had a staff meeting once and there was a heated conversation on it.
And Oxford comma
Yes.
came out on top, I assume.
I
No,
abstained.
no.
I'm gonna start
no.
wearing my Oxford comma shirt.
You are clearly never told to write for character count.
No.
No, I write for clarity.
Commas save lives.
Seriously.
Well, I would
We'll
read
debate
Word
another day.
to avoid it.
As someone formerly trained in Associated Press style, where everything is about minimum character count.
What's the famous example? Like,
Oh,
Let's Eat Grandma.
Let's Eat Grandma. Yeah. Eat, Shoots, and Leaves.
Eat, Shoots, and
Read that
Leaves,
book.
yeah.
Let's rewrite it.
I'm not going to die on that hill for this.
Well, if you'd like to know, it's the last sentence in Who Should Apply.
Oh, I erased it. But I'm working on myself, you know. Anything? Do we have a motion to approve this as our new interview guide?
Move to
Second.
approve this.
It's done. Go away. We're going to bring this out again in the new year when we're gearing up for our next round of interviews. Thank you so much, Barbara,
See,
for bringing us to this point. I don't know that we would have arrived here
I don't think you would be so panicky.
in such a short, I know it feels like we've been talking about this forever, but I don't think we'd be checking this off were it not for your efforts. And the next item is just to kind of close the loop on some conversation we had about corresponding language on the city website in regard to this board's activities and more transparency about how we do things and so on. So that was shared in the packet. Or were we going to bring that up?
It's online, what we were able to update. It's kind of on just the boards and commissions page.
So I did see a draft and told Tracy that I thought it would be more efficient if we looked at it once it was posted, so that we didn't have a bunch of formatting recommendations that we'd have to like do all over again once it was up on the web.
So just to trace how someone might get there from our library homepage, under About Library, and if you go down, you'll see a Library Advisory Board. And this takes you out of our website into what we call PrimeGov, whatever it's called. And then it kind of takes you to the City Council home, right? So then you come down to the Library Advisory Board. This is what's been updated. Maybe.
What we were able to, yes. So some of the formatting, I just want to give that caveat, that some of the formatting was templated. It's just per, like, across the board for all boards. So there were some things that unfortunately, even with what I shared with you, Jamie, we weren't able to actually get updated here. So some of these, like, subsections, they're just static. They will always be there because they're from every board. And even with, like, the bullet points, you can't just remove those. Some of the like language wording we can maybe work with, but yeah, unfortunately some of the like templated sections we can't remove or change.
Would you be willing to point out those areas that were not updated? Because basically what we were going for was just having the language be consistent with what we just approved.
So yeah, kind of the biggest thing I think that was updated is just, it's kind of towards the bottom, but you'll see the line that says additionally the library board actively works to support the library's mission statement. That was the main thing we added. But unfortunately, like I mentioned with those bullet points, you can't just like remove those, and that was kind of the suggestion, is kind of instead of adding those, just going back to the municipal code as what this board is their purview is. So I think unfortunately we'll still have both of those. And then the like max terms is just static again, which is kind of already referenced in a couple other places with how terms work. And then pretty much everything else was just kind of left as it was. The only other question I guess we might have had was the liaison part. There wasn't any way to add any information to that, so it was just stay as it is.
So again, thinking about clarity, I had requested that liaison be library liaison or staff liaison, to make it clear like who was liaising with
who's
whom.
this John Solomon guy?
Right, like who are you liaising with over there? And then my little location, you're offering more than just location, it's time and location. So I think I had made a suggestion to update that heading, and I understand that that's fixed.
I think that wasn't one of the things we wanted to take out was that first bullet point, prepare a long-range plan.
And the last.
Because we don't do
bullet
that.
point, we don't do that. So.
So can we
have
take
to-
out, we just have to have bullets? Or we have to have 5 bullets?
I'll have to circle back on that if we can
Okay.
change
There's
the
5
wording
bullets
itself.
here, but like,
Yeah, even
they,
if it's templated that way.
I don't think we should accept,
Yeah.
being told that inaccuracies have to stand. So if something is inaccurate, like, we'll format it however the city website needs to be
Yeah,
formatted.
but
we
state
should
what you
have
want to state.
Right, erroneous information feels
Yeah.
like the wrong way to
So
go.
let's just say this hasn't been completed yet.
Tracy, did you look into this, or did somebody else?
I did, we don't have any way to actually change things ourselves, so I had to go through the city clerk. And a lot of the things that I recommended were pushed back on essentially and just said that we can't do that because that's more templated. But with the like bullet points themselves, they may have that option to at least update what it says, even if they're templated, that they have to stay in there.
Do you happen to know, technically speaking, what templating language they're talking about?
I don't, because I don't have any like access to what that looks like necessarily, and it's just what I heard back from them.
Is that,
I think it sounds like we need to, the structure we see is the structure.
Right.
Whatever the words in there are what we can update.
Yeah.
Is what I'm
just like, if you click on one of the other, if you click on another advisory board, do they also have 5 bullet points under Longmont Municipal Code? No. So like,
No,
there's
so
definitely
they're
not a
different.
template
Yeah, let's go.
that's like, you must have these bullet points.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious if is it HTML, is it Markdown, like there's different like templating that,
Go to
but
another-
my guess is that this is not.
Could you go to another one that's an advisory board, like?
That's what I just did.
Well,
But some of them are.
where's the museum one?
Okay.
Museum advisory board, that's the closest to us probably, right?
like even the timing of our
See, like-
board can go somewhere else. If we can't change that heading, it can say the advisory board meets the second Monday.
You just think that.
I do. Because I think it gets lost. And I think if I were somebody who's considering joining this board and I were looking for that information specifically, I might not spot it as quickly.
That might be
There's
more
variations here.
formatted.
Tracy.
Yeah.
We gotta follow up with some.
The location one, I'm sure those are fields in some kind of database or something, some kind of data entry.
Yeah, but the content of what's.
the content under description is definitely just a text block. So that's the only thing that I would potentially push back on. The other ones, I don't know.
There's more to do here.
We need a recommendation just to insert a phrase at the top, which is just a paragraph, about 2 consecutive 3-year terms.
The
something like
maximum
that.
of 2,
Maximum. And that didn't get in there.
Well, it's max terms, it says 2.
Yeah, but it doesn't
It would be under
say.
the eligibility.
Yeah, board members are limited to 2
Oh,
consecutive
Yeah,
terms.
they should update that, so that, that needs to be. Because there's a bullet point, it just says board members are limited to 2 consecutive terms. I did request that.
Oh, there it
was-
is.
Yeah, that it was updated to to a maximum of 2 consecutive terms. So that it was clear that it wasn't necessarily always automatically.
Okay, that's
happening.
fine.
But that's not updated here, so we'll have to make sure that gets
Yeah.
updated.
Tracy, do you need any support communicating with the city clerks?
I'll come in and yell at them about HTML.
Tell them we call shenanigans.
Yeah. I'll come look over their shoulders.
We have some people on the board who have intimate knowledge of updating websites. And we call bullshit.
My feeling is that they'll be able to update anything in that description box.
Yeah. We'll revisit this.
Especially looking at the other boards and seeing that they're not
they
putting
don't
that
have those
Mhm.
bullet points.
Some of the other things I can believe, but like that one I don't.
All right, sounds like a 2026 problem.
I mean, it's going to be.
Yeah.
Anything anything else on this for now? It's gonna come back like a boomerang. What's the other saying? Bad penny comes back around like a bad penny. Remember that one?
Except there aren't gonna be pennies.
Maybe not
now.
anymore.
Oh, they'll still be up there.
All right, it's report time.
So something I was dabbling with, like, really very recently, but I thought it'd be worth sharing. The state library introduced, it's like a way for me to gather data that already exists. We input every year to the state library report. And then we can, there's different things you can do with it. Well, someone created a tool where I basically answer some prompts and then I can put it into a spreadsheet and in a little slide deck. I didn't do anything with it. I'm not going to go through every slide, but I think one of the useful things about it is it's designed to basically put in peer libraries and kind of see comparisons.
Oh, cool.
And this is not it. Hang on a second. This is, you can see I've done it's kind of, I was just playing with it. But the numbers are there, and I thought some of it would be worth just sharing as we go through. I put in basically our neighboring libraries as peer libraries, which, I did it because they're neighbor libraries. Obviously the populations on some of these are very different, but it's still worth, because we're, except for Loveland and Westminster, well, I guess Broomfield. I was going to say Westminster's the furthest, but they're the closest in population and stuff like that. So you can kind of see, like, and this isn't, I don't know when they update these, right? Longmont's over 100,000 people. So take it for what it's worth, but it kind of shows you, like, okay, this is our total, what we spend, or the last year, anyway, 2024, what our budget was. In, Boulder's, it's hard to look at because they always have more anyway, and now that they're a district, they even have more. So it's like, so like they're way out there, but if you look at some of these others that are closer in what they're doing, and so those are the peers and overall expenditure. Total paid employees is FTE, right? So just so you know, we don't just have 47 people here, we have like 73. And then I'm gonna really, don't try to stare at these because I'm gonna stop on the ones that I feel like I can talk to. This is one of them. So if you kind of look at, is that the biggest, but allocation of expenditures, and it's not unusual, right? Most people spend most on staffing, but it was interesting to look at, if you look at like collection, and you'll see this more later, but like, a pretty small percent, very high in staffing for us. And then our peer average, we're right there. We spend a little bit more on staffing. Colorado, so it's very close, but if you look at some of these other libraries, it's just kind of interesting to see where they're at. Particularly Boulder, who is able to spend so much less on staffing.
A branch for that, like out of their own funding.
Well,
The biggest change for them was becoming a special district.
So that changed, that's
Yep.
part of the other funding?
Well,
I'm just
the
trying to figure out what they
foundation.
spent money
Oh,
on.
other would be operational.
So
like
I'm saying, so
supply.
they built a new branch, right? They
Yep.
built a Novo branch, and so
Yep.
that probably came out of that.
Well, I'm not sure.
I don't know what year.
Because that was decided on before they became a district, so that is a little gray area. But
Well, what
Wouldn't
else
that
are they
be
spending
capital
60% of
campaign?
their?
I mean, you're
gigantic
probably right.
budget on?
Well, they just whatever.
Yeah.
Pizza
Well, I mean, the
parties.
budget
Yeah, I was gonna
their
say.
total budget is so much bigger.
Wouldn't the foundation have raised a lot of that, like as part
No,
of the capital
no.
campaign? No, okay.
I don't think so.
What was
I
our
don't know.
budget, just go back to that real quick, it was for something?
Ours?
Our operating? 4.5 now.
Seriously,
But
60% of
the point I'm trying to make is that the older public library, their budget is so much huger that when you take percentages can be a little misleading. What are they spending 68 or 60% of $28 million?
Yeah, you're probably
I mean,
right
it's
as far
building,
as
right?
yeah,
It's
it probably
building,
won't be
I know.
that every year.
Yeah. Except that says operating expenditures.
Well, but they have to pay for
But
it.
that
That's
is-
not part of like the city or anything anymore. Assuming that that's.
Yeah.
So quick, rough, imperfect math with those numbers. Actually, I put Longmont in as 100,000, not 98. Boulder spending $212 per capita. Longmont spending almost $46 per capita.
And there's a slide here that's going to get in per capita, by the way, so you don't have to do that. Collection. So, you know, it's kind of hard to tell where it aligns, but
You can't make that any bigger, can
probably.
Do you have a quick presentation?
you? Thank you.
Oh,
If you go to the, where it says slideshow.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
oh, how about that?
Thank you.
I'll have to keep moving this around. That's fine. And this. So what we spend per capita, you know, and so for me, it's like, okay, this is what we're spending. Our peer average is way out here. Colorado average is even further. So that's an area, so when we talk about funding, right, I'm like, we should not be for a town of 100 and some thousand. We're way underspent on, you know, one of our core missions, which is,
Can I ask if you were to do this again and you left Boulder out? How much is Boulder? the
that's a
outlier?
good question. I'll
Because
run
if
this
you look
again.
at the other ones, Brookfield
Yeah.
and Loveland look very similar.
They're very similar, and Boulder may be
So-
skewing it.
I think
Yeah.
that's more likely than Longmont skewing
Yeah.
it. So like,
But I, you know, I
you're still
think
probably under average.
you're right, and I think it's worth running
I
it
still
without
find
them.
Lafayette, Louisville, Westminster to be much higher than us.
I mean, Lafayette's interesting to me because they're so much smaller and they're spending way out here.
That one I think is very interesting too.
Yeah. I think it's worth looking at.
Little Boulder, so.
Well, either way, you know, I think I do want to say, like, it's interesting to get benchmarks kind of a little bit and see where others are. And even though Boulder probably is skewing this,
Yeah.
I still, for me, it's like, yeah, but our populations are very close. And why should we, it doesn't, and for me, it's like, oh, I can say they're a district, who cares? Why are we so underspent? Why do we not care as much about our libraries like Boulder does? We're the same size city, kind of.
Our
And actually,
population size
Boulder's
is
population
very
goes
similar.
way down when they're not,
Yeah.
when CU's not around.
But our population size is very similar, but I'm not sure if our population itself is very similar.
No,
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do I advance?
An arrow key.
I just tried that. Now it works. Okay. Yeah, so another one, just people ask me a lot, like other either library colleagues of mine or almost anybody, be like, is electronic taking over print? For some libraries, yeah. I mean, if you look at Colorado, and I think this number, by the way, this is taking everybody, right? All libraries, all public libraries in Colorado. But I've always said we're a heavy print library still. That's what our population wants. We're a high lending library too, so while others may not have that, they're borrowing from us. We lend a lot out to our member libraries.
Which of these are part of our lending?
All of them, that's why.
Okay, all of these?
Except for Westminster
Okay,
is
okay.
not. The only thing we share with them is our ebook and e-audiobook collection.
Okay. I feel like half of the books I get from library loans are Lafayette. Because they never scan.
Yeah.
So like, it's a sizable portion.
And there's so many reasons why that could be. I mean, we could have it, but it's checked out. I mean, and the way the system's going to go is it's going to say, okay, you are a Longmont patron. Does Longmont have it? No. Who else does? And logically, it should go to the next closest, but it doesn't always do that either. And that's a problem with the system. And that the real problem there is wait time for people. We don't have a huge issue because all of our libraries, these libraries, are fairly close.
Yeah.
If you're in like when I worked back in Englewood, we borrowed materials from Marmot libraries, which goes, as far as Telluride. And I'd have a patron place a hold that Littleton, which is down the street 10 minutes, had, but it pulled the hold from Telluride, so that patron had to wait 10 days at least. So that's a whole different issue that it's never going to get solved until we have a new library system. But you don't really see it on the patron side. I mean, you may, because you'd be like, why is this taking so long? It could be
I was
that.
just curious if you knew, did we get more life loans from any of these particular libraries?
No, there's different numbers we could run to see where we're borrowing from.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Not relevant.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just all interesting.
Yeah.
For me, it's just showing how heavy print we are still, in general, for our population, and the percentage that we have compared to ebook. But the other reason for that is not so much Longmont is like I could say like a print. People want that more. Maybe not. The other side of that is we don't have enough budget on e-content.
That's what I was going to say.
And I know for me, like I've looked for. I don't read a ton of ebooks. It's actually not my preference, but here and there I will, especially if I'm going to travel. Right, like it's a lot easier. Well, the ebook hold is 5, 6, 8 weeks out, but the print's here.
Yep.
So I settle. But then that skews it a little bit in the sense like, well, look, everyone likes print. I'm like, no, I had to because I wanted to read it now.
Right.
Yeah.
And we don't have the money to buy down the holds.
This would be an interesting slide to see as actually raw numbers.
And I have those
Instead
spread.
of percentages,
Yeah.
because if especially per capita, if there's physical items, if the number of physical items per capita is a lot, if it's the same, but the number of digital items for all these other libraries is a lot larger.
Yeah.
That just means that we just have a tiny digital version.
That's all right.
And this all comes from, in fact, when I did this little tool, it dumped it into here, which is nice to present. I have the full spread, and that spread actually has every single public library. And then you can filter and sort and all that stuff. Didn't even look in there. I just wanted to kind of see what it looked like as a tool. Something to maybe look at, as we were talking earlier about different things to look at. It could be this, it could be other numbers in the state, but this is one of them. Collection by material type, so again, it's print, ebooks, and e-items.
Oh, okay, this is exactly what we're talking
Yeah.
about. So yeah,
there's
you
a
see
number.
that tiny ebooks.
Yeah.
Oh no, but we do have just a larger print volumes than even Boulder.
Yeah. Boulder's a teeny print collection.
Where are we putting it all?
I mean, do you go upstairs?
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah.
All the
There's
other
a-
libraries have fewer books
Yeah.
that are one location.
Yeah.
The library in the last city that I worked took out they did a big renovation. They took out all of these shelves in the adult book section and just put in more computers.
My university did that, where they put everything off campus, and then there was it wasn't actually a riot, so I don't want to say that, but there was a very big pushback, and then they brought them all back.
Oh.
Yeah.
We had a pushback in Colorado. Because there's no room.
So Longmont, when I came here, one of the things I learned quickly, even when I was interviewing, and they took me on a tour upstairs, I'm like, there are so many books up here. Like, this is not the current or future model. It's more about space, workspace, whatever.
Yeah.
And but in our little consortium, we're known as having it. Like, if we don't have it, Longmont will have it. And I think kind of this library, in my opinion, has kind of owned that a little bit. I would like to see that shift. And we've done our share of weeding and kind of pared that down, but not enough to start like removing shelves. What I'd rather see is a new location and spread our collections out. We can still be that library if we want, but have it spread out into other locations that we might get someday, and then we can have those spaces that other people want.
I mean, if you took the 50% least popular books and put them into some kind of like storage.
And
that
storage
people
is
still
another
access,
option.
Like, but you still had books on shelves. I think like no books on shelves is eerie.
You know
In a
what I
library,
mean?
like-
No, but actually,
Yeah.
I think there's certainly has been studies on this that show library usage, and I think at one point in time, and this is a library of that era, tall shelves, wall-to-wall books was the thing. It's not that you don't have books, but it's like less shelving and more like what I want to say, like cultivated collections, and nicely more marketable. And people actually want to engage in it. Now it's just like it's dizzying. There's people that like that. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
They're
People
comfortable.
who
They're
need
like, I always want to be
browse.
surrounded by books.
Yeah.
Well, if you're
but you
looking for a
guys get better
specific book,
usage.
you're using a computer at this point,
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're not going down the line.
No.
But a lot of people who read fiction need to browse.
Yeah.
Because they've read everything that they know about.
Yeah.
And so
So
you
right.
just have to go up and down and look and.
Yeah.
But it does have to be, you can't let the old stuff and the ratty stuff and everything become so much of it that it's impossible. So curated reading, emphasizing the newer stuff.
Curated was the word.
Curated reading.
Edit that
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah. And so the new
Libraries
stuff,
good at it.
so the new things stand out. But yes.
This one just shows how many computers we have per 1,000 served. This is also, for me, a little bit like if you look at the Colorado average and where we are, we should have way more public access computers. If I just look at this, there's probably more we could dive into to see. We have the computer lab; it's not full all the time, so people will argue that.
It's hardly ever full.
That's because there's a library out there with 1,000 people, and they have a computer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, if you have one computer or two computers for your library, a small library, that's not that average.
Yeah. And then we get into staffing per 1,000 served. Of course, Boulder's skewing that too, right? They have almost one staff per 1,000. It's just like, that's nice. Operating hours, that's fine. I don't have any issue with our operating hours anymore. Let's skip the salary part. And that salary part, and that salary part. Maybe that was it. Oh, the circulation. This is a little hard to read, I honestly didn't spend a lot of time here. Circulation's a little hard because you have like the 2020, 2021 COVID era, which just jacked everything up with circulation for every library. But then kind of trends with that, so it looks like we kind of climbed and a little bit dip, which is a little surprising from what I see in our circulation, so I'm kind of curious about that.
And what's going on with Louisville?
Yeah.
I have no
It's
idea.
Louisville here.
Here it's Louisville, yeah,
Yeah,
you don't
sorry.
get to talk like that. I know you're southern.
But wow.
There's something wrong with that.
Yeah, that's
It's
a
just bad.
There's
That's
something
a bad thing.
absolutely wrong, and I was like, in fact, I was almost
You
going
can
to strip
ignore
this.
that.
Yeah.
Actually, wait, could you go back to salary? I don't think it's irrelevant. I do think it's relevant.
Damn it,
Please
Kate.
go back to director salary.
Fine, whatever.
This lays specifically directors.
It's this, yeah. There's
Yeah.
there's other staff too, but Louisville. The reason that's empty is they don't report it in their state report. It's an option. I guess technically it's an
Okay.
option.
This feels like maybe one area we're trying to keep up with a little bit.
I would say that in general, the way the city treats compensation is they do compensation analysis every year, and they try to keep us, at least in the first year I was here, everybody was at the mid-range and 101% above that, so that we were always slightly paid above everybody across, not just directors. This is all city employees. Last year with budgetary issues and this coming year it'll be 100%, so right at it. But they do that every year.
Is there a hall that doesn't have a label? Is that Westminster?
It's Westminster, and I'm not sure why it's not labeled.
Can you go to the next slide too? So yeah, that's
We do well with our non-supervising
Yeah.
librarians.
Okay.
And it's actually going to show in 26 because when the city did the compensation this year, for next year, they realized a large number of classifications across the city are now above and in some cases way above market. And so what that means is no one's getting any salary increase. So I think there's trade-offs there with how that's done. I mean, that's a whole different conversation.
Well, and when market is Colorado average below Colorado living wage,
Yeah.
it's pretty messed up.
So the lesson here is stay in the front range if you want to work in libraries, because whatever's pulling that state average down.
But, you know, the 2 years prior, and speaking particularly to our librarian classification, the last 2 years, the first year they got, I think, a 7 or 8% increase, and the next year they got like a 10 to 12%, because that's how far below they were at market according to the city's study. So, you know, they saw that, but now next year they're not going to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's going to get pay cuts either, by the way. It's just that it'll
Yeah.
remain. And, you know, when you think of inflation and cost of living, it's like, well, you know, I mean, how long can that really go? And hopefully these other studies, as they go in other years, that'll hopefully show differently. Other jurisdictions do this way differently, right? When I was in England, they didn't do it this every year. In fact, there was always, I think it was like a 2 or 3% increase across the board, regardless, as a cost of living increase. Any increases above that were purely performance based. So it's done very differently here, at least from my experience. And then forget comparing. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
I didn't say
Finish
anything.
your thought.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just wondering if a non-supervising librarian needs a master's degree, or if it's possible to do like a commensurate years type thing.
We do for a librarian 1, which is our entry-level librarian position that's non-supervisory, we take equivalency, and that's fairly new.
Okay, good. Well, good, because you still think of the raw data here. Like I see that Longmont is on par and doing pretty well, but like Nicole said, you look at the raw data and you hate to think that these are folks with master's degrees.
Yeah, it's a mix as far as degree.
I'm glad it's not required anymore, that there's an ability to have years experience as well.
Yeah.
For this level anyway.
For this level, and for here, not every library operates that way. I've chosen to as an equity issue because it just becomes harder and harder for people, and particularly if you're looking at diversity, who's not going to library school and who is. And so we will have the same librarians for years to come until we change it. And you know, so it's like, I think we need to consider that. And so there's 2 staff here that were promoted into librarian positions without degrees, but they've been working here, and effectively the work they've been doing is equivalent to that, minus a couple things that a degree would get you, such as collection development, so we've sent them to training. There's plenty of library directors and other librarians and there's librarians here that disagree with my take on that. I mean, I'll just be open about that. I just think it's important to create opportunity. And I mean, this could be a whole different conversation. I think there's a lot of things that need to change in MLIS education curriculum. It's stagnant as far as I can tell, and there's nothing new being taught. And so how are we going to progress? So like I said, that might be all different things.
I was curious if you knew, even anecdotally, if there's been like a reduction in graduates coming out of the MLIS programs.
I don't know.
Because there was at one point years ago oversaturation.
Yeah.
Just too many.
Too many.
And so, yeah, you could have a master's and still not be able to find a full-time
Correct.
position.
And I guess one thing that maybe is maybe indicative of that a little bit is when we have openings that are not librarian positions, they're paraprofessional, right, library assistants or whatever they are here, and I would say almost every time we get degreed librarians applying for those, and they're not librarian positions at all.
Anecdotally, my sister-in-law she graduated 2 years ago with her master's in library science, and she is now continuing to work at the nonprofit she was working at before she got her master's.
Yeah.
Not in library sciences at all. She could have taken a children's librarian role, a few of them, across the U.S., and did not want to do that.
Yeah, I think, and there's fair. It also depends too, like if someone who's degreed and looking for a professional work, are they willing to move?
She was willing to go wherever,
and still. So that maybe
like there just
gets to
weren't.
what you're asking.
She was research, so they're just like we're not people hiring for entry-level research positions.
Well, and there was a period in library land where there was this belief that there was going to be like this great retirement, like there was going to be mass exodus of librarians, but then no one left. They're like, no, I'm fine, I'm good. So all these people are coming out of library school and I think maybe that's still the case.
I think I shared my personal experience, which was that I did see a lot of people retiring and moving out, and for each of those full-time salaried librarian positions, the libraries chose to split it into 2 or more part-time roles without benefits, or just not rehire at all and redistribute the workload.
Yeah.
That was in New Jersey 10 to 15 years ago, but it was very
I think the
discouraging.
pandemic had an effect because talking to people who are still at CU libraries, the university offered incentives for people to retire because they were closed and they wanted to
like
cut
a golden
salary.
handshake kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so a number of people who I knew who were younger than me, but not a lot, they wouldn't have normally retired that young, but they took it. Yeah. And now the library's totally changed. Really. Somebody who's still there now. It's not this cohesive group of librarians that we're always there on site and work together as a faculty and everything. Everybody works at home, or half of reference is done online. It's completely changed. So, and I suspect they don't have as many. I don't know numbers, but.
Yeah, and the programs are getting more and more expensive.
The
to go to
science
school.
programs?
Yeah. So that's another factor, I think, for people to commit. And then, the nature of the work we do, I think there's so many different skill sets that are needed. And I think at a high level, and that's where I circle back to what's being taught, to come out and be ready. For me in particular, and I've had staff come to me, I'll tell you, and a couple of them still are enrolled they're in an MILS program. my question to them is like, what do you want to do? Like, I mean, one of them's like loves archives and research. I'm like, that's probably appropriate. If you see yourself in a leadership role, like you want my job, I would do organizational leadership in a heartbeat. I would not get a library degree because library degrees still don't teach people how to run organizations.
Yeah.
I've learned it on the fly, and I'm one of millions.
Yeah.
So again, I have a soapbox,
Yeah.
which I didn't intend to get into, but Katie made me go into salad. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Katie.
But we do well. I jumped to the hourly, so assistant and below clerk area range. So, you know, again, like, it's up there as far as that goes.
Right at that living wage.
Well, I shouldn't, I'm not saying it's like up.
No, I know.
I don't want to go past that one. Visits, you know, that's physical visits. I'm pretty sure. I don't think it includes like website visits. But I do like to look at and consider visits. It's important when I'm telling people that we're a busy library.
Mm-hmm.
We're still the most visited in the city by far. Programs offered, you know, no, it's just total programs. I was a little surprised by this. I feel like we do a million programs every time.
Wow.
But you know, that just shows to me what that says is the staffing level and capacity we have to do it. I feel like we do a lot anyway. And then when you get into attendance, it's going to match, right? So if you look at attendance in all these other places, Westminster doesn't seem to be doing a lot of programming there, but that just might be, that's not a need. I don't know. And that's it. That's the last slide. I do want to say, I said it before, I literally did this like a day ago. I just like downloaded it, so I was like, I'm going to just show some of these numbers. You kind of see some of the tools. I might dive deeper and maybe, you know, kind of get into the full spread and kind of get other pictures of it. Soon enough, probably in January, February, March, we'll be gathering and submitting our data for 2025 so we can run reports on it. And that was pretty much what I was going to do for my direct report.
Thank you. I'm trying to think of, maybe this is it. Yeah. So there was a book I read about a year ago called Overdue, Reckoning with the Public Library by Amanda Oliver. Kind of a memoir, kind of just like a nonfiction critique of the U.S. public library system. And she uses her own experiences as a former Washington, D.C. librarian. But there's so much about equity and just the changing function of the public library, that a lot of that essential service type of stuff. But it struck me, she has this part in the book where she talks about how she got her MLS degree and then got a job in this very busy city library, and all of this stuff that she needed to know that was so important, they didn't talk about any of it in her program. And you know, it was like over $100,000, and it was she was very upset about it.
Who's that by?
Amanda Oliver, called Overdue. It's from 2022. Anyway.
Should we go into engagement opportunities?
Let's.
In the interest of time.
Yes, please.
These are the two of the big ones happening this spring that at least are engagement opportunities. There's certainly other things coming up. Our new brochure will be out probably in the next week or so.
Oh, cool.
To give you the full gamut of everything we're doing winter, spring. The gardening fair, I think most people are here probably familiar with because we've done it every year. And it's a big event. It's a huge draw of people. Last year, the Friends embarked on being there and had a great success selling gardening books on the fly. They kept going to the basement and pulling up books, I guess.
Oh, cool.
And just got good engagement. So there's a lot of people here. I think that's probably a tremendous opportunity. And that's always on a Sunday when you're looking at that. The other one is the Librarians film that it's a newish documentary that's still making around in the like film festival circuit. It's doing very well. It's won some awards. And we got the rights to screen it, which we'll be doing in March. And so I would anticipate a pretty good turnout for that when we get around to marketing it. It'll be at the museum, which is a great venue for film, if you've never been to one of our films, or even their films, actually.
Yeah.
Or Boulder Film Fest, whatever.
Yeah.
The other thing that that I'm exploring, and I'm meeting with the manager of the Stewart Auditorium and programming at the museum, there could be an opportunity, and I've talked to the Friends about this too, to bring out the director and maybe even a producer and do some kind of Q&A, like a film fest type of thing, which I think would be fun. I thought about maybe going as far as the Friends and making it a ticketed event. The requirements for the screening is that we have to make it free. However, I'm going to meet with the museum manager. One idea I had is if the Friends basically wanted to help fund bring one or both of those people out, maybe we could ticket a Q&A event. Like only the film has to be free. And then maybe do like a VIP kind of thing where they get like in the museum you can have like wine and snacks. So like do some kind of event like that, like a before or after for people that want to pay. Just exploring that might make it even a little bit bigger of an event.
Like a meet and greet.
Yeah, like a meet and greet.
Could do a silent auction. The Friends could do a silent
Exactly.
auction.
I think there's opportunity there. I first want to talk with the museum guy because I don't know how that works. With the museum, if what money has to be put out, as far as if you're selling things like that, or do you not sell it? Is there ticket pay for that? I don't do stuff like that, but he does. So there's more to come on that. I think even outside of doing that, that's probably our other big event that's going to happen. That would have a large draw, seasonally. So that's it.
Very cool.
Unless there's questions about it.
Any comments or questions?
See you there.
Yeah. All right. Any general comments from this board before we
I have so many things, I'm so sorry. The first thing is that I apologize. I somehow now have, what do you call it, obligations, conflicts, thank you. I have conflicts with both the January and the February meeting. And I know we moved those to avoid the holidays, and I am here for both holidays, but away for both of the weeks before. And I know we get close to quorum now, so.
Is there anyone who knows or thinks that they might not be able to make that January 12th meeting?
I'm still okay on the January 12th one. We're on the 9th in February though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm going to be away the 16th. I'm going to be away the 16th.
So we chose the 9th.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking, Kitty? Is that still good for you?
Yeah, that's still good. I was just making sure that I had that in the calendar correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we were doing the January a week early.
They're both a week early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're both a week before the.
So as far as
Holidays,
we
yeah.
know, Jamie,
Mm-hmm.
we would have quorum unless something comes up for the remaining
Right.
3.
So
I'm so sorry.
I would
this is
rather
why
know
we
now.
talk about
We would
these
rather know.
things,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
So everyone's here tonight, everyone hears us saying that Nicole will not be able to attend these two
I can
meetings.
try to actually make the one on the 9th. I will be traveling that day. I'll actually be traveling both days, and I do not think I'll be able to make the 12th. Maybe. I can try to make both. I'll try
There's
to show
no
up.
pressure because we have room
It's
for
gonna
one
depend on
person
travel.
to miss, and right now
Okay.
you're the one.
Okay.
So if anyone else gets sick or wins a trip to Hawaii, like, just please
Or
let
gets hit
Tracy
by a
know
bus.
in advance. Because we'll just cancel
Yeah.
and meet again when we can.
Yeah.
I might be able to make both of them. Looking at like what travel times I have, I might be a zombie, but
Well,
Well,
I
we
think
don't want you to-
when the
yeah, I would probably do. I
Dragging
would almost
yourself
certainly
to a
do.
Zoom
Yeah.
call.
I think when Tracy sends out the invite, right? That's when
Yeah.
you can decide.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah,
Something like this.
we'll see. I'll be traveling home that day, so I will just try
Is
my
it-
best. to see
Yeah,
if-
but then we'll know for sure, like, yay or nay on you, and then we'll assume everyone else is good,
Yeah.
and then if not, we'll figure it out or cancel.
And also let me know if anybody else can't make it, and maybe I can try to.
Right,
ask
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No lives will be lost.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? If we were hearing that 2 people definitely couldn't make it in January, then we would be looking for an alternative date now, but we're good.
And then I got some community feedback. I'm sorry, this is gonna be a hard one because I have to I'm gonna say this like diplomatically. I've heard this this is the second time I've heard this. This is about the children's story times. There's a bilingual one, which I think is excellent. I've attended. And the comment that I've heard from 2 different people now is that I believe, and I don't want to make any assumptions, or they believe, I guess, is that the librarian who does the story time is not like a native Spanish speaker, and I think the idea is basically like with a town that has the diversity of Longmont, I think they find it unusual that we do not have a person of like Latino descent, like a native Spanish speaker, especially because I believe, pretty sure we have some librarians who will fit that profile, who don't do the bilingual story time. That is the feedback that I've now heard from 2 different people, so I thought it was interesting and relevant to potentially bring up. Is there a way maybe that children in our community can see more representation of their own culture, especially at an event like a story time like that? And I know the librarian, I'm pretty sure, has a very deep background in the Spanish language. And that
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it's not about
so it's,
fluency.
no.
Okay.
No. I think it's more representation and diversity, not.
No, it's and we
Quality
talk
of-
about this a lot here, just in
Yeah.
general, and that like Lillian, our outreach person who is of Mexican descent and has tremendous success reaching, and I think because the point that I think these people are making is they see themselves right in the person that they're interacting with because they're from the same place or they're there's a cultural connection there, which we talk about that a lot for sure. Specifically with this, you get into we have this person who is 100% fluent. In fact, they can translate. They're one of the higher Spanish speakers here.
Sure.
But to that point, like, and when I think about story time specifically, which is a very specific skill set, do I have other staff that are culturally what this person's talking about, but they can't do story time? Could they be trained? Maybe. Do they want to? I don't know. I'm not offended by the question at all. I think
I would say just from a different perspective, I've been to her story time as well, and I think she's fabulous, and I know that that's not what Nicole is disagreeing with at all.
No, yeah.
But also as a native English speaker who learned Spanish in college, would also tell you that learning Spanish from a native speaker is an advanced skill, right? And so if you were trying to bring a little bit of cross competency in other languages to a new learner, it's easier from my perspective and a lot of my non-native speaking peers' perspectives when I was in college. It's easier to start out with somebody who sounds like you can't really place where they're from, right? Like you don't get lost in a specific dialect. they kind of learn kind of like everyman Spanish and everyman English. And so I think there's kind of an argument for that as well. Kind of like mixing it up more than not seeing the validity in it just because she is, right? Like, I have had some phenomenal Spanish teachers and professors and some really mediocre Spanish teachers and professors, and they do not correlate to whether they were native or not. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that talent that John's speaking of, being able to put a lesson together bilingually, is a unique talent separate from being fully bicultural bilingual.
I also want to kind of add to that I think it's potentially we are thinking about the audience of this in two different ways, because I do agree that most of the audience is a bunch of little white kids, and they are learning Spanish. However, I think there is a contingent of Spanish speakers and children who speak predominantly Spanish, presumably, who do come. And I think having it, if it's actually a bilingual story time, I think it's less that they are learning Spanish because they speak Spanish at home. And so I think that's probably where this comes from, where the assumption from the people that I've spoken to is that it is actually a bilingual story time. And so for children who speak Spanish at home, having somebody who speaks Spanish natively as the person reading the book might be more representative of their experience and more inclusive.
Representation absolutely is kind of a separate thing, absolutely, and that's why kind of mixing it up is kind of like the ideal, because I mean, in vice versa, if it is also hopeful for a native Spanish speaker to learn from somebody who learned English later in life, like that's also helpful for them, right? So it's cross correlates and it's totally different goal. And yes, seeing themselves represented out in the world in a professional capacity is very important. And so to me, it's both things, and we're mixing it up when we can, than having one or the other.
And we do mix it up, but broader than story time. I mean, there's other programs here, and there are children's programs that are not story time that are not done by her, that are done by what you're kind of expressing. I think it's great feedback. I would say another issue we talk about here more broadly when we talk about audience and who's coming to the library, and we've seen a decline in attendance from Latinx people coming here because of the current political climate. They're not leaving home. And just because we have someone that is a cultural match, they're still not coming. It's a different issue. I'm just bringing it up because it's something else we're talking about here, and how we're trying to address that. It's a real problem.
Because that is of course the predominant issue now. But before that, you know that in our local park, she was doing Spanish story time in our park. Was that easier for monocultural or bicultural kids to come to neighborhood parks than to have Spanish story time in the library? Was that working before her and
It worked. Yes, and it still works.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's a big program, and in fact that's one area where we're going to try in the winter months. In the years past, that particular story time in the park, and they don't want to stop. But what we've done in the winter is like no one wants to come to the park either, so we're going to try and have it here and see if they'll come, and particularly if it's with Lillian, who they already work with. Which is exactly what you're getting at. So they have somebody that they already work with and connect with on that level. So we'll see.
Yeah, because that looks like a fabulous program too. I've walked by it and driven by it a few times, and it looks really great too. So I'm glad to hear that the numbers aren't receding too much.
Yeah, and the people that come are in that neighborhood. They're close to home. You know, so it'd be interesting to see if they come here in the winter, but they were the ones asking to. So,
Well, it would seem, I mean, if you're calling it bilingual story time, it would seem that it would be important for the native Spanish-speaking kids to hear someone speaking English for whom it was their native language, you know, rather than a Spanish speaker who has has still an accent. They're not hearing native English. I mean, we're talking about preschoolers here, aren't we?
I don't,
Story time?
well, it depends which story time. I think the
Yes.
bilingual is all ages.
It is, but it's.
But that's
it's
who's,
honestly
but that's who's
younger than
coming.
preschool.
Yeah, that's-
And I will say the one in the park is not bilingual story time.
It's just Spanish, yeah,
It's for that community.
yeah.
It's
But, I mean, it seems-
specifically bilingual outreach. I mean, sorry, I'm using the word bilingual,
Yeah.
but for her role, that's the connection. That's her
the
whole job
connection-
is to
yes,
connect
yes,
with
no, I totally get that.
that community. So,
But it seems like it's also important for native Spanish-speaking kids who speak Spanish at home to hear English being spoken, you know, and reading books and that kind of thing. Is that something that anybody is doing, or are the books just? I've never been to one.
All the other story times are exclusively in English.
Exclusive.
So any other day that they show up for story time, it's all English.
It's all
So
English.
there's a toddler one, a baby one,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
There's a bunch
yeah.
of different ones.
that's the only one that's
This one
designed
is,
that way.
all of the books are in Spanish.
In Spanish,
Yeah.
I see, okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
So we're going to try to move the monolingual Spanish story time into the library for the winter months and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, let's see how that goes.
And then the last feedback thing, I guess, whatever, is from my experience. I tried to book a meeting room last minute for a, there's like a nature group that I'm part of or whatever. I went to a besides the snowstorm last week, 2 weeks ago. It is not possible to book these meeting rooms last minute. You need a week's notice. And then there's, I think, one coordinator, I don't know what this is, who like handles the meeting rooms or whatever throughout. Is it you? Is it you? Okay, I called and they were like, a coordinator. And I was like, that's Tracy. Anyway, all of the other local libraries have something that you can just look at online and you can just book the room right there through your computer. And so I was able to check Erie's availability. They didn't have availability for what we looked at, so I also looked at Boulder's. Boulder had everything. We ended up being able to book something last minute in Novo for like the next morning. And it just seems like a shame that I imagine it's possible that these meeting rooms were empty at the time that we wanted to.
They're often used, but it is potential, so I would love
Just
to
no
look
way
into it a
to-
little
yeah.
bit and see what other policies other libraries may have. And we can definitely look into that. So thank you for the feedback.
Yeah. That's it from me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. We'll see you next month. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and thank you for your work. We will adjourn 9/11.
Thank you.
Thank you.